All right, this one I think is really neat. I don't think this will be neutral at all. In fact, I almost want to give it a simplifies right now. This is cool. This is SAM Serverless Connectors. So the idea is they've added a new SAM entity. So SAM is kind of a higher level language built on top of CloudFormation that allows you to do things in a serverless way. That's the S in SAM, serverless. So with Serverless Connector, the idea is you have a Lambda function that needs to talk to an S3 bucket, or an SNS queue that needs to talk to a Lambda function. Well, you would do your typical, you could write all the individual elements with your SAM template, which is, again, just a CloudFormation template. But then you need to get them to talk to each other. And that means IAM policies. And that's where, at least I feel like I don't enjoy that part. And it feels like, oh, great. I was using this tool that was really simple, but now I'm back in YAML policies and looking up these kind of obtuse terms to get this all to work. But with SAM Serverless Connectors, all you need to do is say, I want this to talk to that, and it will generate the policy for you. The documentation is here, the what are SAM connectors. You basically say, I have a source, a destination, and do you want it to be read or write or both? And I think that the most useful bit here is all the combinations. They list this. Here, I'll put this article in. I'll put this article in the comments. I think this is really useful. It just says, okay, you want Dynamo to talk to a function with read access. You can say Lambda function wants to talk to an SNS topic. Obviously, that would be write access. Anything you'd want to do. Well, not anything, but many combinations are supported here by default. And then you don't have to go out and then generate or write these policies and get them to work. So, I don't know, Raul, what do you think about this?
I think I really like it. You've heard me talk a lot about the future of developing applications being something that I call stitching together a bunch of AWS services to achieve outcomes. This is for the first time that I'm actually seeing some of that stitching taking some real world form from AWS's end. So this is still a lot lower than I would like it eventually. But yeah, in effect, it's stitching together these services. You just say, I want Lambda to talk to DynamoDB or Lambda to talk to SQS or SNS, whatever. And just by saying that, you're stitching these services together, and all the other policy stuff, permission stuff gets taken care of under the hood for you.
Yeah, it does. I agree with you completely. I like that higher level view of looking at it, where you really are saying, I just want this to talk to that, and give me the opinionated, approved path for how to do that without having to end up on some Medium article or Stack Overflow comment.
Correct.
I worked up a little demo of this. I think it's really neat and really straightforward. So with that, I think I'll jump into that. Well, Here we go. Let's use DevSpaces, and we'll show how this demo works. So the first step in this project, I'm going to start with this SAM Lambda Pi Graviton, this template that we mentioned earlier that we had the blog post about. And I'm going to just click on Use this template. And I will call this, I'll put it in AWS Made Easy. I will call this, let's see, AME Demo SAM Connector 2. And I'll make it public. And let's create that repository from this template.
That is ready.
All right. So now the great thing about DevSpaces, we've got this template populated. It has our initial Lambda function, a Python Lambda function. So let's go and start a DevSpace here. Now with DevSpaces, you can pre-configure your environment variables. So I've got my AWS credentials baked into this. So any repository from AWS Made Easy, I've got a certain set of AWS credentials, your AWS access key and your AWS secret key. They are built into this. So we should be able to, so this will start in another second or two, and we're going to show you how to deploy this, this template. Let's see, I might go to one that's already started. Let's see. Let me refresh on this one. Here we go. Let me open one that I've already done. Here we go. So the key thing about this one is that we've got, okay.
There, I can see that you have a function.
I've got a function and an S3 bucket, and
Yep.
I made a really simple function. So what it does is it will get the input, and then it will say, I can pass it a key called fname and contents. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, fname and contents. And I simply write the contents of contents into a key called fname. And then I list the new contents of the bucket back, and then I return this.
Right.
So what you can see, let's see if my other dev space started. Oh, I see. I must have broken the cache if I change something. So here's my dev space here. And what you can see is that normally what you'd have to do is, in order to get this Lambda function to talk to this bucket, you would have to create a policy and then attach it to the Lambda function. But in this case, all we did is we did my connector, which says I want the entity called Pi function. Let me zoom in on this a bit more.
So the source is the Pi function. The destination is the S3 bucket.
Yeah. And I want it to be able to read and to write. And then all I had to do was, I can do deploy to AWS. I haven't made any changes, so it should figure that out. This change set should be fairly minimal. This will deploy, and then let me show you how this works. This also uses a Lambda function URL. Oh, I think what I did is I removed this. I must have removed the stack. Okay, so here's a new. It is now deploying
the old stack again. Yeah.
There we go. So now it gave me an endpoint, which is right there. I can call this. So let me share with you a different screen so you can see me calling this endpoint. 1 second here. Share. Okay, so we'll take the function URL, copy that, and then if I do HTTP GET to this URL, it should list the contents of the bucket, and it's saying there's two things in there, ABC123 and AYB.text. I can change that to, host. Hold on, sorry. Let me go copy and paste the bucket name again. Copy. HTTP post. And then this is a tool called HTTPy, which I really like. We'll call it a file name called xyz.text. And the contents are xyz123def456. Now that's going to write that into the S3 bucket, and then it's giving me the new listing of the bucket. And so I guess the cool thing about this is that I didn't have to deal with an IAM policy. I didn't have to do any of that. I just had to say, I want my Lambda function to be able to read and write from this bucket, and that's it.
Yeah. And SAM is really an abstraction on CloudFormation, so you get all the benefits of the entire stack being set up. You can go inspect what happened with the entire stack creation. You have control at pretty much every level, though you don't have to deal with all of those specific details. You could if you wanted to, but you don't really have to, because all of that has been baked into a very neat template and pattern that is now available to everyone. And again, AWS gets a lot of messages from me talking about how pissed I am that they are not opinionated enough. But I think SAM and these templates are one area where they've actually done a pretty good job. There are tons of patterns, there are tons of templates that they are kind of looking at them across the board and creating these classes and creating these standard, abstractions, which save customers tons of time and tons of effort. Like had you needed to do this all by yourself within CloudFormation scripts, just that YAML would have driven you insane by now.
I knew a guy whose entire business was he had this great set of CloudFormation scripts, and he would just customize them for different clients, and that was literally his entire business. And so, as far as I know, he's still carrying on, and it's tricky to get them all working right.
Correct.
So I posted this repository. It's in AWS Made Easy called Demo SAM Connectors. These are not real keys. Don't worry. But I've made that mistake before. But then the cool thing is you can see template.yaml, and you can see, okay, I've got a function, I've got a bucket, and there's the connector. And you can go plug in your own keys as environment variables and then just run the script called, deploy to AWS, and away you go. So please give that a try. Just use the Graviton DevSpaces, and it's really easy to get started. All right. So I guess I think just to finish up this segment, what do you think in terms of cloud ratings?
I think this is a 4. Simplifying these. So my worst nightmare personally is dealing with IAM policies and schemes and stuff like that, making sure that they are set up just right. It's one of the biggest pain points in getting started with any application. And so I think this goes a really long way in simplifying that. So simplifies is definitely afforded, and I'd give it a 4 out of 5 for giving all those specific details, having that entire table of source and targets. Definitely a 4.
All right. Yeah, I agree. It was really, really easy to get started, to play with this. The fact that I probably won't have to write an IAM policy for a while unless I'm doing something, a bit. For most common use cases, you won't have to do it. If you're going to use recognition, you'll probably still have to do that. But for the straightforward use cases, having a function talk to a bucket, SQS talk to Lambda, you don't have to deal with those policies anymore. That's great.
Completely agree.
All right. Well, let's continue with that theme and go on to, we are going to be talking about the S3 object lambdas. So let's run our transition and we'll come back to S3 object lambdas.